Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my revisit of Pacific Drive. If you're not across it, this segment is where I'm just going back to look at games after a bit of time has passed that I covered under the main format on the main channel. There'll be some links somewhere, you can find me, I'm sure, maybe that's where you came from. But the general idea is, like in this case, we're looking at Pacific Drive. It's been over a year now, I covered it at release, and it's one of those games that it really has stuck in my mind and I've wanted to go back to it. This has been a perfect excuse. I've jumped back in, I've played the intro again, and my God, it holds up so well. It's really good, man, and I really would recommend it if you didn't check it out. It's on a fairly deep sale at the moment as well, so the timing couldn't be much better. Perhaps that's why you're here, because of the sale. I will raise that if you watch the original video, I did come down quite harsh on this game. It had some pretty egregious and yet hidden away in like detailing stations and all that. It's not super in your face, but some what you could probably call progressive, performative, stuff jammed into a detailing station. I don't want to retread this other than to say that all of my concerns about it stand. I haven't changed my position on that. However, I did allow something that wasn't too intrusive, at least compared to some other contemporary examples. But I allowed that negative taste in my mouth to kind of soil the memory a little bit. And I've struggled with that a little internally, because the one thing that has lived rent-free in my mind since I last played this was, the soundtrack, the atmosphere, the rain pattering down on your windshield and going through this beautiful world and environment with an art style that is very evocative, something like The Long Dark. Kind of cartoony and stylized, but a detail that is great when it comes down to sort of granular customization of your car. Anyway, look, I thought I'd just address that, at least on a very surface level thing. If you want to see my complaints and really go for the jugular, you can watch the original video, it's still up. I feel like if you can reconcile that crap being jammed in the decal station, which I can, honestly, then you'll be in for one heck of a ride, because this is a really fun, immersive game. That's one of the coolest things. So what is it? Okay, structurally, once you get into it, it's actually fairly, it feels big budget for what is ultimately a roguelite. Usually, your roguelites run the gamut, but they generally lean towards, your $5 brotato sort of games, which we just covered on the channel the other day. But, I'm not necessarily throwing shots. It's one of my favorite games of all time, but you don't usually get a more robust story. Things like Returnal come to mind, which is way up the other end of the scale, triple A, money, money, money. But again, even that is super rare, and it's kind of a one of a kind. So I guess this sits in the double A space, being published under Kepler. But yeah, it is what I would probably call a more detailed, a more high production roguelite type game. Just so happens that you're in a bloody car going through it. The trappings of it are sci-fi, but not necessarily the sort of new wave, kind of popular hard sci-fi, Nolan-esque stuff where everything has to be explained away perfectly. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy that consistency as a bit of a nerd, obviously. But this is very much, we have this exclusion zone, the Olympic Exclusion Zone. It's very stalker vibes. Something was going on, anomalies in the 50s. They've walled it off with these giant bloody concrete Jurassic Park style walls all the way up into the sky. And now you're this, silent protagonist that finds yourself in there, and you're kind of getting barked at by a little radio drama with three main protagonists talking at you and to you. And which, by the way, like I said, in my vitriol, possession, my rage, when first covering this, I came down quite hard on their little narrative radio drama. And the truth is, it doesn't deserve it. Coming back to it now, it's fine. It's better than fine. The voice acting's really cool. There is a cranky, entitled old lady scientist, but to be honest, that's less about seeing some sort of messaging and more that she's supposed to be a bitch that's awful to everyone, and she does it very well. So, it's one of those things. That's part of why this segment's really cool, because I get to revisit things in hindsight in a different mindset. But yeah, so you find yourself in this zone, and it has this kind of black box fantasy science. The entire landscape just can't hold physical form, apart from very specific kind of, stable plots, which are the instances that you go to. You have yourself what's called a remnant. It's an item or whatever, some sort of more complex man-made something or other. And in this case, it's a shitbox station wagon, which becomes your vehicle, your base, your home. And the idea is that you move through this environment, looting and pushing the story forward, collecting scrap, and it has a pretty big premium on upgrading, repairing, augmenting your car. So the RPG component is kind of vehicular based. And it's great. It's very grindy. It's very much, drive along a little bit to, another house or something, go in, smash everything, throw it all in the boot, craft some stuff, and keep moving along. The runs can get quite long, apart from, going out specifically when the game lets you off the leash just to get gear and stuff to upgrade your car to get the next level door or whatever, which is quite rewarding, but yes, grindy. There's that, then there's pushing the narrative, and then there's like a whole hook on when you want to leave the zone, you pull out these energy anchors and put them into your car, and you essentially summon an end portal that you have to race towards and escape through this like pillar of light. So it's all pretty weird and wonderful, and you got to go along with it. And it's presented straight from all the characters involved, which really adds to it. No self-awareness of the absurdist nature of this sci-fi setting, which is how modern humor often works. No. This is deadly serious, as weird as it might be, and I think that's great. Playing it straight's always the answer. But one of the main complaints that to this day seems to persist in a lot of reviews and discussion is the save system being fairly brutal. And it's one of those tales as old as time roguelite problems that the more involved and robust, let's say, that an individual run gets, it does raise that question, how do you save? Can you save state to save on exit or what have you? And the truth is, I think this game, it sort of stands testament to its success, has overlapped with a more normie audience that's not used to strict save systems in this kind of run-based gameplay design. So I think there's merit to the complaints, being that it leans so hard into the crafting grinding, like going around and grinding up every bit of car that you find. Like very quickly your run can turn into an hour if you're anal about collecting everything. And then if you die, you're going to lose everything and it gets scrapped and reset like you didn't do anything for that whole past hour. I can understand that pressure point, but also I feel like it is one of those things, sometimes you got to play a genre the right way. You got to engage with it as it clearly wants to be played by the developers. And I think looting absolutely everything that's not nailed down is not really the spirit. It's more about have a plan. Hey, maybe I need to rebuild the left door and I need these tools. So you pin those things and you go looking for those things and you get in, you get out, and then you can just do infinite runs. But yeah, it's got such a really intriguing environment. I love the art, this long dark-esque cartoony art. It's so beautiful. But even things, the fidelity of interacting with your car, it's obviously not like a slalom bloody racer around chicanes or anything like that. It very much is pretty low fidelity. So for what it has to do and what it demands of the car, it steers and controls really well, right? If sluggish, but it's not like you're trying to do F1 lap records or anything. But yeah, the pattering rain, the really low vibe soundtrack, I still fondly remember, and I look forward to more now that I've booted it back up, of, just pottering around, repairing up doors and bloody headlights while you just listen to the chill music and the rain outside. It's really cool, man. I don't even know if I even got it into the original video, but like there's a complex bug system that you sort of have to debug your car, and I think you can kind of do like a mastermind test thing, but like there'll be things like the wires will cross in some absurd way, like when you turn the left blinker on, it'll make the back door open or something. Like that might be a very extreme example. So you might go for a long time and not realize that you've got these bugs in your car, and it gives it personality, and rooting them out can be such a task as well. So you generally suffer through it if it's not so bad. But like, it's such a clever, wonderful game. And as much as I'm beating myself up a little bit for letting their silly performative decisions stop me from enjoying it as best I could, it also cuts both ways. I think if they have any sense, whatever their next release is, they don't put shit like that in it and they just stick with catering to a broad audience, because this studio, what they did, just the cleverness and the execution of it needs to be celebrated. And I wish them nothing but success for their next release, and I will, regardless of my apprehension about certain aspects of certain design decisions. I will absolutely be checking out whatever it is they put on the table next. Anyway, team, that's enough from me. Might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.